Hello and welcome to Wild West Garage. My name's Morgan. I'm standing in the shop here in front of the 76 Ford crew cab, and today's project is one of the rear doors. I'm gonna do some rust repair on the bottom here. It's all blown out on the inside, and the outer skin is perforated, so I'm gonna replace as much as I need to on the inner and put a skin on the outside lower portion of the door. So if you've been watching any of my metal repair videos, you know what I'm capable of. And one of the things I talk about a lot is reference points. So there's a couple ways I guess you could go at this. You could just hack everything off, all the rest of the stuff off the bottom, but then you're going to lose all your reference points. Or you can just cut out like kind of a small area here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a grinder and I'm going to grind off the edge of the door skin, so it'll become two pieces. The part that's folded over will be separate, and then I'm going to peel away this. There's a few spot welds along here, so I'll peel this part off, the folded over part, and then I'll do all my repairs as much as I need to do on the lower inner, and then I'll cut the outer skin off, and I'll use the outer skin as a template to make the new outer skin. Ideally that's how it would work, but because the corner of this is so rusted out, you can see I can stick my fingers right through it. Once I get this ground off, I don't think I'm going to have a whole lot to go by here, so I'm going to make a cardboard template first, or I'm just going to get a piece of tin, and I'm going to clamp it on here and trace around, and that's the piece that I'll use to make the door skin. So I kind of make things up on the fly here a little bit. What's the point of making a cardboard template if you can just make a steel template and then use that steel to make your part? So I'll leave extra material on it so I can do the folds, and that should work. I'll just trace around it, and I'll show you that as I go. So here's my blank. So I don't know if you can see, I put a bit of shape in it. So I did that I tried putting it through my slip roller at first, and it only seemed to be bending the ends. I guess this is 18 gauge. So I think the rollers were just bending out in the middle, so they weren't shaping the middle so much. So I wrapped some layers of duct tape around my flat, the flat anvil on the English wheel, to give it kind of a cushion, and so that way it wouldn't actually stretch the metal, it would just bend it. So, and then I got the middle to curve. So now I'm gonna clamp this on here like this, and then trace around it, and I'll have a template then for the outer skin. And this is 18 gauge satin coat. So because I'm tracing around the outside of the existing skin, this is just going to be a reference. It's not going to be the actual size I want, or where I want to put the folds. They'll have to come inboard of the scribe line a little bit. but that's all right. So now I can go ahead and release this. And of course you can see there's a lot of extra material on the bottom here. It's probably twice as wide as it needs to be, but that's okay. I'll trim that off when the time comes. And it's probably too long on the top too, so I'll have to trim that as well. Now I'm going to use a die grinder and go at these spot welds. So as you can see, there's nothing left of this corner, even the outside. The outside skin is completely gone. So yeah, I mean, I'll still have some reference here, here, and here, and that converges into the corner, so it's not, even without my outer skin tracing to go by, I'd still be able to fix this. And so now I'm going to cut this corner off. So I've already gone in on both sides with the zip disc and cut in about 3/4 of an inch right through the outer skin and the inner panel on both sides. So I'll just pick up the end of that cut and come right across here, probably out to this spot weld here. And then I'll use this piece as a guide to make this new corner piece. Okay, here's my blank. I'm a little bit ahead of you. So here's the old piece. And so I laid it on there and just drew a line roughly down where I thought the center of this was. Made this bend over this T-stake here, T-dolly. And then holding this on here now, I found the apex of these bends. So now I've got to bend this back, and this sort of looks like it goes into a V, right? So it's gonna close this up, or you know, when I make these bends down into here, these are going to converge, and then that'll flatten that back out again somewhat. But it's going to cause some issues with yeah, I'm not sure what it's going to do. There's going to be excess material here because this is kind of like a tuck now, right? So I'm going to use my I'm going to try and use my sheet metal brake to do that. Straighten that out, or do those other folds. But I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it actually. No. If I take the apron off, I probably, yeah, I'll take this off and then I'll be able to do it. So that actually flattened out my other bend quite a bit. Yeah, so that pretty much took out my first bend. So maybe I can bend this back over on the T-dolly, but I kind of doubt it because it's got strength now. Maybe. But then it's taking the other bends out. So I'm going to have to come up with a different program here somewhat. I might have to make something that I can hammer this into. We'll see. So here's what I've got so far. A lot of bashing back and forth. It's starting to take shape. You can see what it's starting to resemble this. I think it's probably a little bit too much. Like it's too open here. This should have come into a point like about here somewhere. But what's happening, because this plane is more or less flat, right? This plane here is more or less flat, and then this, so you can see the difference, see? So I'm fighting between the two planes. This has to be bent overall this way, and this has to be flat. So I did a whole bunch of hammering on here to stretch this out to get more, some more area into here, so I could bring this up. And of course this really needs to stay the same or shrink down in here. But it is coming, and I think I'm going to be able to put this in the door now, and I'll stitch weld it on along here. It'll take the shape that I need, and then I can work this edge here. Even if I have to put a cut in here and then re-weld it, that'll be okay. Now it gets to the point in in my world where it just doesn't it seems like you're just beating your head against the wall. Comes to some of these things. So trying to get that to fit really nice before I weld it. It's just not. I'm just going back and forth with it, so I'm just going to go ahead and tack this in and see if it'll if I can get it to, if I can manipulate it where I want it. And if it doesn't work, I'll just cut it out and start over again. Well, I won't start over, I'll just shape it so that it will fit. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I need to force this into shape somehow. Put another tack down here. And we're going to end up with a great big gap. Gets rid of that big gap. Just keep stitching this along. it's a little short on the end here. So this worked out really well. Like I said, I just got tired of beating it back and forth, and now, you know, by welding it on here, I welded it into submission, and it's a reasonable facsimile of the original piece. And I don't think anybody, unless they're an absolute expert with a photo memory, they're going to be able to open the door on this truck and say, hey, that's not right, when it's all done. So I'm happy about that. I was talking about reference points earlier in the video. So once I cut this outer skin off, I'm going to lose the bottom of this door. So if the skin isn't here, I slide the new panel on, it's going to go up too far, because you can see the door skin is much lower than the inner. So what I've done is I've added these tabs here on the inner structure, so on both ends. So there's another one right there. So then when I slide the door skin on, it'll come up against that, and that's my reference. That'll locate the door skin. And then I can scribe the cut, and I could even come back here once I've got the door skin fitted. I could even cut these off, but I don't know if I'll do that or not. So this pretty much worked out exactly the way I wanted it to. It's just a little bit below this line on the door here. So I didn't want it right on the line. I wanted it below that. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off now, just below my Sharpie mark there, and get this all cleaned up inside and put the skin on. One thing I'm worried about is this doesn't have any kind of crown to it, the door. It's perfectly straight along there. So I'm worried that it's gonna dive in on me when I weld it, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I may put something inside the door just to hold it out a little bit, like in the middle. So when I weld it, it can't dive in. I'll see what happens here. I'll see what kind of, just put a piece of wood in there or something just to hold that up. Here's a look at the inside after I've cleaned it up and sprayed it with some cold galvanizing compound. There were some perforations over here. So, and then there were 3 holes here, some low spots because of pitting. So I just put some weld in there, and I don't know if you remember, there was another hole over here, right around there. That looks like a bit of a low spot too that I missed, but I'm not going to worry about it. And you can see there's pitting along here. There was some pretty big pits along here that I've went over with some weld too. So, I didn't think it was worth cutting this out and making a whole piece for that. And same over there. I could have, but I didn't. And, it's going to be fine. And then, so I'm a bit of a fan of this cold galvanizing compound. It's high zinc paint. So this acts like a zinc on your boat. So when it'll sacrifice itself before the metal does, right? To corrosion. That's sort of the theory, the idea. So that's what I like to spray in the lower areas of doors and stuff, if I can, on repairs like this. I've used other stuff too, but this to me makes more sense than putting like a rust encapsulator on here, because I'm going to have to do some welding. And if I painted this and then welded like the spot welds on the other side, once I got the skin on, it's going to compromise that coating in that area, and the rust is just going to creep underneath it, and it's just going to be a bigger mess than I think this will be down the road, because this has the zinc in it, so it's like galvanized, right? So I think this is good. I think this is the way to go on this. So you can do what you do, I'll do what I do. Okay, so I got the zinc coating on there, and here's this thing I was talking about that I wanted to do. Just got a little block in there and a stick that runs all the way along the back of this, where the seam is going to go here. And to be quite honest, this is a bit of an experiment. I've used other methods of restraining panels before when I'm welding them, and some worked, some didn't work. I'm hoping this is going to work. I want to prevent it from going in. If it comes up, which I doubt, it wouldn't be so bad, but if it goes in, I'm not going to like that. I think it is going to try and go in, but this is going to stop it. It's kind of like putting a strong back on. You know, sometimes when you do heavy, like structural welding, and you got a tube, and you got to weld pieces to it, it's always going to shrink on the side that you're welding, and it'll cause that piece to bow. There's other ways to correct that, but if you weld a strong back on it, just tack it on the back side, it will prevent that bowing from happening so much. So that's kind of the idea with this. I'm not welding anything to it, I'm just pushing against it very lightly. There's not a lot of pressure on this. It's just enough so it stays together and holds this up. So here's my patch panel. I've gone ahead and turned the edges on it, and I drilled some holes in it there, you can see there, because I want to plug weld that after to simulate the factory spot welds. This corner here is more rounded than this corner. This just from the factory. That might be a bit too rounded, but it's kind of how it worked out. I just held a piece of, like, actually the end of a chisel in there and just used as an anvil to form this corner. So it's all ready to go now. Just got it fitting really nicely. So I'm just going to go ahead and start welding this. I'm going to start in the middle and work my way both ways, just tacking it, and then I'll come in and kind of do it the same. I'll weld a little bit on this side, a little bit on that side, and just get it welded out. I don't want to do a continuous weld on this one because I think it's going to be a bit of a problem. I can get to the back side, but not real easily all the way along it. And because it's right on this corner, it's going to be difficult to rework this if it goes crazy on me. So I just want to be real careful putting this on. And this is 18 gauge, and I think this is probably 19 gauge. I don't think it's 19 or 20 anyways. So there's kind of a lot of strength in this because it's on the corner, but we'll see how it goes. Got my Miller 130 set on the number 3 setting. It's pretty hot, but for tacks, that's a good setting because you get a good hot tack. It penetrates. Okay, that's feeling pretty good. There's a bit of wobbling going on there, but not bad. So you notice I didn't hang around in any one spot real long with the grinder. I kept moving around because you can do some warping with grinding too. Get something too hot. Yeah, there's a little bit of a bump right there, but not bad. More or less straight. So I'm just going to go ahead and weld this now. See how it turns out. Still got it on that pretty hot setting. I want good penetration. Rub my handle on here, and it's hot, but it's not burning my hand. It's not a wet rag or anything. It's just a dry shop rag, paper rag, and it's not even burning. So I mean, I'm not putting it on red hot, but it's, I'm keeping it cool, and so far so good. Looks good. That's good. This is a really flat panel. It doesn't have any bow to it really. So the reason I did this is for the same reason I ground the tacks. I want my welds to tie in really good to the initial stitches. So if it's thicker, it has a harder time tying in. And so I'll run my welds over top of these a little bit, just to make sure it's completely welded. Okay, so You might notice that I'm not welding down here. It's because I need to put a little patch in above the bottom panel. It's rusted out right there. So that I will do last, once I get this all cleaned up and folded over and everything. I'm going to go ahead and grind this down. I'm not going to keep you here to watch me do that, and I'll bring you back when it's all cleaned up. Okay, there you go. There you have it. The weld seam's pretty much disappeared. I'll be quite honest with you, there are a few little dips and valleys here. Peaks and valleys. But it's all within like a 1/16 of an inch or more or less. I'll show you what I got going on here. So you can see right there, there's a bit of a gap, but it's kind of rocking. So there's a high spot in the middle, but it definitely, and then the original part of the door, it's really flat. So I mean, that's probably the worst right there. That's just, barely showing. So it's all good. It's as good as I could have ever hoped to get it, really, considering what I'm doing here. So we're going to call that total success. I may put a little skim of something on there to level it out, but I probably won't, actually, now that I think about it. I'm trying to do this truck with very little filler. It's going to be it's not going to be a super shiny truck, so, and it's going to get hit and scratched, and I don't want a bunch of Bondo flaking off it. So that's what the goal is with this one. So there you go. And I'm now going to flip it over and hem the seam, or not hem it, but knock the flange over. And I guess this is the hem. So I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so time to fold this over, and I don't have any, I'm not going to say I'm a total expert on this or anything, but all I use is a regular flat face dolly. Just hold it under the, try to hold it under the edge of the panel, not touching all of the panel, just on the edge. And then, so I'm going to use this hammer a little bit, just a regular body hammer, flat face body hammer. And then I might use this hammer that I built. I built this hammer quite a few years ago now, to do a skin on a tailgate for a 55 Chevy, and it was a really kind of a tight area, so I had to, swinging a hammer like this didn't really work, so I had to make this hammer so I could, keep it back here. And I'm going to use this curved face hammer on the sides because it's curved. I might start out with the flat faced hammer just to get it started, and then I'm going to switch to this one to finish it off. I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom first. And this is loud, so I'm putting on ear protection. So I'll start over here, and I'll just work my way gradually back and forth until it's all folded. knocked down there now.
So I ended up with this inboard here, right at the top, which is not the greatest thing. And I just keep hitting it until it spreads out a little bit.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about here. You see it, it's inside there. So when I do the rest of the welding, finish the weld, I'll just run some weld along this edge, and that'll bring that out flush with that. Same thing happened on this side. So because it's, you see how it kind of turned here? And I think that is because I shrunk this flange a little bit so the panel would curve still. And so when it folded over, because there's not a lot of strength on the end here, it just pulled this in, right? And then it actually bent more too, like further onto this side than it did here. I tried to reduce that. You can see how the whole thing is curved, right? So by hitting this top edge first and trying to push it down, but it didn't really work. So that's a lesson. Like, start a little bigger. I was thinking the other way, that this needed to be smaller, like not as wide. But now that I see what's happened here, for the next one I'll make it the same, or just a little bit wider, so then when it tips over it'll roll in and come up flush with this. So I'm going to leave that there for you. Yeah, it's not completely finished, but you get the idea. It's well on the way to being finished. Maybe a couple more hours in this door and it'll be tidied right up. I'm pleased with the way it turned out. I hope you enjoyed watching me do it, and maybe you learned something. Maybe there's something you could tell me that would help me do this a little bit better. If you do have any ideas, please let me know in the comments. And I got one more door to do. This is the right side door. I got the left side door to go now, and then all the metal work's going to be done on the crew cab. So here we go, the back side, the hem, all finished. Just it's ready for prep now, and I'll show you the top. And there's the finished top. There's a little patch I put in where it was rusted there. It's a little wavy over here. It's distorted a little bit on me. It's not bad though. It's like a 1/16 of an inch down here. I tried to pull it up with some studs, but it's just too strong. I did get it up some, but it's just too strong in this area. And then right there, I actually had a high spot in this body line here. It's a little bit wavy along here, but just, it's just not worth getting too excited about. But right here, I had it where a straight edge would rock on that. And so it was touching down over there and then touching down over there. So I ran 5 little spot welds. I pulled the trigger on the MIG welder 5 times along this ridge here. And that was enough to shrink it. And it's dead flat now. So I'm really happy the way this turned out. It's a fair bit of work, but it's worth it for a crew cab door because they're hard to find, and I think this is better than a factory door now because it's thicker material, it's galvanized, or satin coat. It's galvanized and zinc coated. Anyways, and it's just going to outlast me. Pretty certain of that. It's 50 years old now, so I don't got another 50 years in me, so I won't have to worry about it. Just going to be, from this point, it's going to be just cleaning. There's a little bit of rust that I got to take care of on the roof here, some rust pitting around the clearance light where they mount. But other than that, this cab is, that's the worst surface rust on this cab. The rest of it is just minor. So, anyways, that's where we're at with it. And so thanks for hanging out. See you next time.